'Tis time for Team Talk. And since 'tis time for Team Talk, that means it's time for the Pro Tour historian, Mr. Brian David Marshall, to join Maria and myself at the news desk. BDM, 37 teams, which by my calculation means you need about 3.5 hours. So we don't quite have enough for that. So have you kind of whittled it down a little bit?
We're going to talk about slightly less than a third of the field today, from some of the biggest names in the field to some, up-and-coming players who are looking to make themselves a part of Magic history this season on the Pro Tour.
Great. Where do you want to start?
Well, we're going to start with MUSASHI.
Start at the top.
Start at the top. This is the team that won the inaugural Pro Tour Team Series. They defeated Team Genesis at the World Championship. And this team is just stacked. Yuki Ichikawa, Kentaro Yamamoto, Yuya Watanabe, the Hall of Famer, Shota Yasuoka, the Hall of Famer, Ken Yukihiro, one of the hottest players on the Pro Tour, 3 Pro Tour top 8s in recent memory, and Teruya Kukamai, who, we watched him at the World Championship, and he was basically, everything rested on his shoulders, and everybody was off to the side, and he was just sitting there, just waiting, And so this team has unchanged from last season to this season, and there's no reason to not expect them, with this caliber of players, to be in the top 4 again.
Okay, Maria.
All right. Ultimate Guard. Now here is a fabulous team. This is the old Puzzle Quest team back to battle under a new name, Ultimate Guard. We've got Andrew Cuneo, 2 Pro Tour top 8s, Paul Rizzo in the Hall of Fame, Owen Turtenwald, Hall of Fame, 4 Pro Tour top 8s, Reed Duke in the mix as well, William Huey Jansen, of course, Hall of Fame, your world champion, and there's the Peach Garden Oath in this team. You can spot there, as well as, let's just throw John Finkel in there. How about that? Another Hall of Famer, 16 Pro Tour top 8s.
Yeah, so I'm going to argue that that's not the best lineup in the field.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
let's hear it.
Yeah, so let's try it with Channel Fireball, shall we? So it turns out after 2 rounds, Channel Fireball were 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0.
Really?
Yep. I don't know how they all did in round 3, but that is their lineup. Now, Mike Sigrist, we've been having some fun with Mike Sigrist and at his expense. But to be clear, because he is the only non-Hall of Famer on that lineup, which is obviously absurd, Mike Sigrist secretly is one of the best limited players in the world, is also a player of the year, Brian David Marshall.
Absolutely. You talked about how they were all 2-0. This is 3 of the best limited players in the game on the same team. Ben Stark, Martin Yuza, and Mike Sigrist. I mean, and obviously everybody here is a great limited player, but players who are have been the limited mastermind of their team for multiple events.
And Ben Stark said to me last week, because we were talking about how silly the lineup was, and he said, I can say with a straight face, at best, I am the 3rd best player on my team. And he is, top 3 limited players of all time.
The consensus from talking to those guys is that Paulo is just on another planet right now. I talked to Mike Sigrist, and he was talking about not knowing Paulo that well when he first started playtesting with these guys. And within 5 minutes, he's like, oh, this guy's just playing circles around me. This guy's insane.
Okay, who's next, Brian?
We've got a team, HARERUYA Latin. This team is a mix of Pro Tour champions in Lucas Esper Bertu and Carlos Ramao. Draft master Marcio Carvalho, Sebastian Pozzo, who was a constructed master last year, Luis Salvato, who's got a 9th place and a top 8 playing in Pro Tours in recent memory, and of course, Thiago Saporito, one of the exciting young Brazilian players. 2 of these players from this team also going to the World Magic Cup to represent Team Brazil, Carlos Ramao and Lucas Esper Bertu, and they're going to be joined by Paulo Vitor Damarosa. This is, to me, one of the teams that maybe people could sleep on a little bit, despite all the power on there, but just because they were still not familiar with Luis and Sebastian, and I think this team is terrific.
Okay, Maria, next.
All right, face to face. Here we go. Corey Burkhart, 7 GP top 8s. Ben Rubin, Hall of Fame in here, 4 PT top 8s. Eric Froelich, Hall of Famer, 5 PT top 8s. Rich Hohen, Gabriel Nassif, Hall of Famer, just played him in draft the other day. Guess what? He beat me. And Dave Williams, 10 GP top 8s here.
Yeah, I must admit, a lot of people sometimes confuse me on Magic Online for Rich Hone, and they're very disappointed when they find out I'm actually just me. So yeah, he still has a great reputation on Magic Online. Let's move on. Let's take you to Team Genesis up next. They were, of course, the finalists from the World Team Series. Slight jiggling of the order here. Michael Majors now working at Wizards, of course. So you've still got Seth Manfield, Brad Nelson, Brian Brown doing the 2015 World Champion is there, Martin Muller, captain of the Dane Blast team from 2014, Lucas Blahon from the Czech Republic, and Corey Baumeister, who is, of course, the brother of Brad Nelson. And there was a period earlier in the season when they were first and second in the Player of the Year race. An outstanding lineup, especially when it comes to Standard, especially when it comes to making the right pick for a mature Standard format. Can't wait to see what they bring to Standard. Brian David Marshall, who's next?
Well, let's talk about Team Final Last Samurai. Final Last Samurai, this is another Japanese team. You know, Musashi, gobbles up all the headlines, but this is a team where Ichi Tamada, he's got a Pro Tour top 8. We've been talking about Yuki Matsumoto, obviously off to a terrific start here. And, if you're wondering how he's regarded in the Japanese Magic community, you got to look at the players that have allowed him to be on their team. Hall of Famer Kenji Samura, World Champion and World Team Champion Makahito Mahara.
And Hall of Famer.
And Hall of Famer. And Hall of Famer Tsuyoshi Fujita. So, he's on an all-star caliber team. And, this is a team that, I think their fate will rise and fall on Kenji Samura and Tsuyoshi Fujita's how well they do this season. They're players who have not playing maybe as seriously as they played in their prime, but if they find that fire here this year going into the first event, this team could go very far.
Maria.
All right, well, let's talk about Team Revelation. So this is kind of like Genesis' sister team here. Petter Soharik, Gold Pro there. Thomas Hendricks, 7th at Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. Paul Dean. Joel Larson, Champion Pro Tour Origins. Christopher Larsen here, Silver Pro, as well as Martin Dang, Champion Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir Champion.
Yeah, I like what you did there, Larsen.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, not the same person. All right, and I'm going to talk to you about Metagame Guru's Sun, which is a bit of a mouthful. They have 2 teams. They also have Metagame Guru's Moon, but here is Metagame Guru's Sun. And the trick to these, if we can take a look at them, there are 5 gold players and a platinum. And honestly, I think it's easy to look at Jerry Thompson and go, okay, there's your Pro Tour champion, fine. I think a lot of this is going to boil down to, there we are, there's Josh Cho, Ben Friedman, and Matt Severa. Of those 3, only one of them have a Pro Tour top 8. That's Josh Cho. He's played 7 Pro Tours. I think a lot of what their possible success rests in is how Cho, Friedman, and Severa, who are the less accomplished opposite Rookie of the Year to Pro Tour top 8 Stratsky, Pro Tour champion Thompson. If any of the 3 of them can have a really great platinum pro year rather than gold pro year, well, then they could definitely be in the mix. Brian, one more from you.
Sure, I've got Team SNAPCARDSTER.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Talk about a handful.
Are they the SNAPCARDSTER Mages?
Yes, they are the SNAPCARDSTER Mages, and this is a team of maybe players that people aren't as familiar with, but some really multiple gold pros. Ryan Cubett from Australia,
right.
Someone who has impressed early on in his career. Grzegorz Kowalski is someone I want to talk about because Martin Yuza is a huge friend and a huge fan of this guy as a player, and has introduced him. He got to play test with Team CHANNELFIREBALL and Team Ultra Pro, who were all in the same hotel boardroom for a week playtesting, and they got Grzegorz into that unit for playtesting for this Pro Tour, and nobody really knew who he was, and Martin gave him the thumbs up, and within a day everyone's like, dude, who is this guy? He's awesome. Yeah. He is awesome. So one of the up and coming players from Poland. I don't even know if that's fair to say at this point. He's here, and he's a gold pro.
He's
a gold pro. Yeah.
Okay.
Makis Matsukis, someone who has a Pro Tour top 8 already. Michael Bonda, Bill Chronopoulos, the World Magic Cup champion, and Vitor Grasado, who is playing in his first Pro Tour. So, exciting weekend for him here. Anytime you get to play in your first Pro Tour and you get to do it in the company of such accomplished players, that's got to feel great.
All right, Maria, what big name team are you going to close out with?
All right, well, this isn't a big name team, Rich,
No?
but BDM set me up about Pro Tour first timers, and this team has got 4 of them. They're kind of my pet team. It's Team Tower Games. There are a lot of them from my hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota, some of them in my play group as well, so I'm super proud to see them here at the Pro Tour. Scott Markinson, of course, your champion of GP Vegas back in 2015. Matt Sicking-Johnson, he put up 10 and 6. This is actually his second Pro Tour at Amonkhet, so that's a pretty impressive first Pro Tour finish. And I don't know how he did in the draft, but he started off 2-0, and he said his deck was insane. Daniel Weiser, first Pro Tour, 22 years old. Jackson Hicks, 16 years old, first Pro Tour.
Oh, good
Sam
on him.
Illenfeld, first Pro Tour as well, an RPTQ winner. He's 25. And Alex Johnson, first Pro Tour as well. I just love to see this when grinders, you know, they work so incredibly hard, and they make it onto their first Pro Tour, and it's just a great thing to see.
My home team, journalistic integrity, schmegrity. Off it goes. All right, I'm going to tell you about Team Eureka, my local continental group. Here they come. Patrick Dickman, Valentin Mackel there. They have 2 top 8s between them. That is both belonging to Patrick Dickman. Panagiotis Papadopoulos from Greece, of course. Steve Haddo, the best Luxembourg player of all time by a mile. Emmanuel Gershenson with his 2 Grand Prix wins. And Alexa Telerov. Look, the deal with this is that any of the 5 who don't have a Pro Tour top 8 could easily have one by the end of this season. If they're going to be in the mix, multiples of those 5 are going to need a Pro Tour top 8 by the end of this season. So it's really a case of can they? I guess we'll find out. So that was 11 of the finest teams in the world and someone else. There are 37 teams in total, and they all have their dreams of getting as far up the leaderboard as they can. We'll be keeping an eye. Brian David Marshall is our man on top of everything in the team series this season. Can't wait to bring it to you. That was the first look at the team series for 2017 to 18.